Iowa coming off its first year under Coach McCaffery. Plenty to build on looking ahead to next year. More than 80% of the scoring and rebounding returns. Melson Basabi had a great freshman year. Bryce Cartwright, a revelation at the point. Certainly a lot of positives, Coach, as you look back on this season. How would you assess the season?
I think, Dave, the thing that really made me happy as a coach was that we got better. You know, we started the season a little bit slow out of the gates. Gatens wasn't healthy. Had a big win against Alabama early down at the Paradise Jam, but didn't really get any traction. Had some tough, close losses, and it gave us, I think, the feeling that we could play with Ohio State, we could play with Illinois. Struggled a little bit on the road early, but as we came into the last part of the Big Ten schedule, our guys really competed. And we had some big wins. We had some tough overtime losses, but I think grew as a team. Our confidence level improved greatly. I think Bryce Cartwright at the point was absolutely fabulous. Early on, we weren't sure. Come into the season, he wasn't really projected to be the starter. Ends up leading the Big Ten in assists. Melson Basabi had a number of 20-point, 10-rebound games, was the dominant post player on the floor many times. A guy we will miss is Derek Cole. He had a fabulous senior year, and the thing that upsets me is that he was really playing his best basketball at the end. The way he played against Purdue was phenomenal, but Matt Gatens shooting the basketball, Roy Devin Marble really came around. Eric May had some phenomenal games. Andrew Brommer, I think, has a chance to have a fabulous senior year. And we had, Josh Oglesby to the mix, a great shooter, Aaron White, an athletic front court player. We still have a couple of scholarships. I really like our chances next year.
Coach, you talked about your competitiveness, and it was really on full display. Were there things you did in practice to kind of build that culture so it carried over into games? Was it something you did with shooting drills or just trying to instill that culture of competition, which was really apparent?
Well, we did a lot more situations later in the season, time and score, and we've always done that. And I didn't do as much earlier because we were in a situation where I was putting so much new in, and I was trying to get them to know and understand what we were doing. But there's no substitute for understanding how to play in a tight game. You have to run an out-of-bounds play on the side, out-of-bounds play underneath. You're pressing, you're not pressing, you're behind, we're ahead. How are we going to protect the lead? And they got so much better at that. We were trading baskets earlier in the season, and to see the transformation, especially with Matt Gatens defensively, he became our stopper. Here's a guy who was a scorer. He's a shooter. He can score the basketball, our leading scorer. Now he's going and shutting the other team's best wing player down and doing it playing 36 and 37 minutes. I think we have to get better defensively next year, and I think our depth will help. I want to press more. I want to run more, but we obviously, I think, established that we're going to play up-tempo.
So defense is going to be an emphasis for your team. As you look around the league and start thinking a little bit about how this league's going to stack up next year, what do you think about a general pecking order? What are the teams that impress you the most?
I think one of the teams that jumps out at me early on would be Michigan with what they have. They've got everybody back. The way that John played this year with a lot of perimeter players, Darius Morris was fabulous. I think you look at the teams at the top in our league, they tend to reload more than they tend to recruit. So, those teams I think will still be good. Ohio State, Michigan State, two teams that come to mind. Illinois has got a lot of talent back, even though they lost a lot. They may actually be better because there was so much competition for so few minutes. I think it had them sideways periodically. But I think when you look at it top to bottom, I think we'll be right in the hunt next year for another 6, 7, 8 teams. I think Minnesota is going to be good. Obviously, when you suffer a late season injury like they did with Al Nolan, I think it derailed their NCAA tournament chances. Hoffarber had to play the point, and that affected their two-guard position, but they have some good young guards and some athletes, and they've got Mbakwe and Sampson back. So many teams I think will be in the hunt, but I think it'll be much more wide open. I think you could kind of look this year and say these are the teams that are going to be in the top. I'm not so sure next year.
Yeah, I would put Michigan right at the top. And this was a team, Dave, when we looked at it at the beginning of the year, you wonder who's going to score. Are they going to break 40 points? And they've really had guys step up. Tim Hardaway Jr., Darius Morris, the development of Jordan Morgan, I thought was very impressive over the course of the year. So this is not just a one-dimensional three-point shooting team, although that is something that they can do exceedingly well. We talk about experience. They'll have that back with Stu Douglas and Zach Novak. An interesting story to watch is going to be Ohio State. They're losing David Leidy. You know that they're losing John Diebler. What happens with a guy like William Buford? What happens with Jared Sullinger? Even with that, having Aaron Kraft come back. And I still think a team that everyone always overlooks, but all you know at the end of the year, they win 22 or 25.
Can I finish this sentence for you? Wisconsin.
Thank you very much. Right. I mean, and this is a team that's returning a tremendous point guard in Jordan Taylor. They do lose John Lure and they lose Nankivell, but they're very high on Jared Bergen, and they always seem to find somebody to step in and fill that role. And I think the other thing that really makes Wisconsin impressive is they don't do anything to help the opposition beat them. They make their free throws. They take care of the basketball. That's always going to give them a shot.
Obviously very well coached, and you could say that across the board in this league. What jumped out at you after you went through 1 year in this conference competing with all these guys? What's the difference between being here and being in the Metro Atlantic, for instance?
Well, I think it's really difficult to win on the road in this league. People have said that about the Big Ten. You go on the road, the crowds are phenomenal. Teams shoot the ball, play better at home. So right off the bat, you look at what Purdue did, what Wisconsin did, run the table at home. So you have to really play almost picture-perfect basketball. You go back to Wisconsin, they don't turn the ball over, so you have to go beat them. Each team has stars. So you have to think, okay, we come into the game against Ohio State. What are we going to do with Sullinger? What are we going to do with Jawan Johnson? Okay, how are we going to play Jordan Taylor? Okay, what about McCamey? And then they have secondary stars. They have guys coming off the bench that can play. They have size coming off the bench. You look at Myers Leonard, and he's playing 8 minutes a game. He'd be starting at most places. And that's what this league is. It's talent. It's great coaches. It's phenomenal atmospheres. And it's the mentality that has to be built over time that we're going to compete every night. We're going to go on the road with a game plan and successfully implement that game plan and beat really good teams. That's how you get to the NCAA tournament.
Well, Coach, it's been great having you be a part of this conference in this first year at Iowa. Thanks a lot for
My pleasure,
taking the time
you.
to come to Chicago and visit with us this week. Fran McCaffery, head coach of the Hawkeyes. Sean, good work out of you as always as well.